Hey y'all, so today we're going to talk about something that's actually very exciting. We're going to talk about the difference between a production and a development environment. So have you actually ever heard the saying, oh, well, it works on my machine? Honestly, I hear that all the time, and I say it all the time too. And the reason why is because sometimes when we're working on an application, we give it off to somebody else, and we're just confused about all the different errors that they have because why? It works on my machine. Well, I want to talk about why certain things work on one person's machine and doesn't work on the other, specifically when we're at work, and something called the development environment and something called the production environment. Okay, so I want you to visualize it this way. You decided on Thanksgiving or Christmas you're going to make smothered turkey wings. You decide to do a test round before the actual day, because why would you experiment on the day? So you decide to do a test round before the actual day, and you cook it at your house. You know where everything is, you have everything, it comes out great. You're excited, you're ready. Christmas/Thanksgiving comes, you go to your mom's house because that's where it's being hosted at, and you decide to make the food there. And for whatever reason, those smothered turkey wings do not come out the way you expected it. It does not come out good. It does not taste the way you did at home. And you're just trying to convince people that, well, it really did taste good when I made it at home. The difference between that, you making it at your mom's house, and you making it at home is the environment. At home, you have certain seasonings, you know where things are, you have a certain type of butter, everything is where it is. You made that in a different type of environment versus making it at your mom's house. The difference between those two environments is similar to the difference between a production environment and a development environment. One environment is tested, it's more local, and you have room for failure. Whereas the other environment, those smothered turkey wings, they were tasted by your friends, your family, and you had no room for failure. It's the same thing when a software developer builds an application. They test it locally upon their machine and it works perfectly. They give you the same app, or let's even simplify it. They give you a script. They give you something that they know works on their machine. Like say I wrote a script that is going to check all of my files that were created before 2025, and it deletes everything. It works on my machine locally. I give it to you and it doesn't work on yours. And that's because we have two different environments. Now we can talk about how to avoid these type of problems when something works on one person's machine versus the other. But today we're just going to talk about what is a production environment and what is a development environment. So one is a safe place to work, a safe place to experiment with your code, add different features. And another is where real live users are actually interacting with it. And the difference honestly could be detrimental. A development environment is a sandbox that developers can use to test out new features, can test out fixes to bugs before it actually is in front of an end user. The development environment is used for testing, debugging, writing scripts, updating new features. No actual end user sees the development environment, only the development team, testers, etc. see it. But there's no end user who is going to have a problem with you introducing a new feature on the development environment because they don't see it. Your development environment is like practicing a speech in front of a mirror. You're not actually in front of everybody versus you actually being on stage in front of everybody. You have time to practice, you have time to work on the different kinks and take certain things out of your speech. You're experimenting in front of the mirror versus actually being in person somewhere. So now this is where things get a little bit more serious. Your production environment. Your production environment is where you actually have end users. There's people who are actually interacting with the application. There's people that if there is a downtime, it actually affects them. There's people who notice when something new is introduced. That is the actual production environment. If there's something that breaks in your production environment, there's end users and customers who actually feel the impact of that versus your development environment. Your production environment is a lot more serious than your development environment. So because of that, your production environment needs to be stable and it needs to be secure. Whereas your development environment may not be as stable as your production environment is. So if your development environment is like practicing a speech in the mirror, your production environment is like actually giving the speech on live TV. There's no go backs, there's no editing, there's no fixing things. The mistake is the mistake. People see it. So what is the purpose? What is the reason? Why do we have a production environment? Why do we have a development environment? The difference, honestly, we've explained. Think about it this way. Instagram or Twitter is introducing a new feature. They want to add like a new search bar, or they want to add something. Well, they can't just come and add that feature, because what if it doesn't work? It needs testing. It needs to make sure it doesn't break something else. before they actually do that, they wouldn't live code it into their production Instagram that we as the end users are using. Before they do that, they'll do a whole bunch of tests and debugging, and all of that stuff needs to be done in development before it is rolled out into a new update, right? Think about it. Anytime Instagram is down, anytime something doesn't work on Instagram, you see how quickly we are on Twitter complaining about it, checking to see, is Instagram just down for me? Is Instagram down for you? That is what happens when production is unstable. So that's why, and then think about the impact that it has, the amount of users who are using Instagram on a daily basis. So you don't want Instagram to be down. You don't want it to be down because you decided to roll out a search bar that doesn't actually work and breaks the like button. So you want to go and test and do all of that stuff beforehand. And so developers do that in the development environment in kind of like a sandbox. It's a place that they can play, test out their features, see if it really works, see if it breaks anything else, see what the impacts of things are, and see if it actually solves the problem of what they wanted to solve in the first place before it's rolled out into production, a place that us, the end users, are interacting with. So that's the difference between the production and the development environment. And if you haven't before, I actually talked about in another video what the difference between working in a live production type of environment is when it comes to work-life balance versus being in the development side, where there is a little bit, in my opinion, more work-life balance. So I hope this was helpful. I hope this was very understandable. And if you haven't, make sure you subscribe and make sure you follow me on all my social media platforms.